Welcome to another episode of fabitgarage. So before I start this episode, I want to say thank you to all you guys that have been watching, following the project. We did get that 100 subscribers. Thank you guys so much. It really means a lot. Now I can change the URL on the channel. More people can find it. More people can get help with the project. It's really appreciated. So clutch is completely done. As we left in the last episode, I installed the new master. I mounted the reservoir here. So basically, I fabricated a bracket so I can use the nut from the brake booster. So that bracket comes up and then holds the reservoir. Worked out perfect. From here, there's a stainless steel pipe here that does a 90. From here, it goes right to the master. So, and that line is now touching the body, as you can see. It's barely. So that worked out good. And not only that, but the reservoir is way bigger on this one than it is on the Miata reservoir, which I'll show you here. This is tiny. So yeah, clutch is completely working. It is a little heavier than the Miata clutch. So when you push the pedal, it is a lot more force you have to apply, but it's not really a big deal. I mean, this is gonna be a fun car, and I've driven way heavier clutches. Like my brother's Evo 9 had an extremely heavy clutch, and it was still, you know, you don't want to be stuck in traffic with it for 3 hours, but it's drivable. So this is definitely right in between a heavy clutch and a basically no effort OEM clutch. So it'll be perfect. So it's completely bled. I just had to top it off a little bit. I ran out of fluid, but I'm gonna put it right on the max line. So clutch is completely done. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep going on the exhaust. Okay, so we're gonna keep going on the exhaust since the clutch is done. I put this front pipe back up. I put the H pipe up. So that's all the way up to back here. Before I keep going from here all the way back, I decided to add support to the front, so I added hangers. I had some stainless steel rod laying around. Let me see if I can show you. I had some hangers. Again, welds are not pretty, but they will hold perfectly fine. So what I did was I cut a straight piece of stainless rod, did this here, and then for the other part, I heated it up with a torch, with acetylene, and bent it, and then welded to the cross member. So that's what it looks like that, on both sides. So these two front pipes are fully supported. So you don't want the whole weight of your exhaust on your V-bands. These V-bands are not extremely thick, so you don't want the whole weight of the exhaust on just those two V-bands. So, you know, I plan on having 6 hangers. I have 2 up front here for the 2 front pipes. That's before the first V-bands. And then after the H pipe, and I got to the rear end, I'm probably gonna have 2 more hangers here. I might take this one off and move it down or add another one. I don't know, I'm not sure yet, but when I get here, I'm gonna have to figure something out. So 2 hangers back here somewhere. And then obviously reuse the Miata hanger here or modify it, whatever, but the 2 mufflers are gonna come out like this with a tip. I am no longer gonna do dual exhaust tip, so quad tips, because this is in the way. And I was thinking about cutting it, but honestly, I think 2 tips is gonna be fine. I'm not gonna bother cutting this up because this is actually good to have in case it breaks down. But yeah, I'm just gonna do 1 big tip coming out of each side, and that should be plenty. So yeah, I'm gonna keep going. Now that I have the front secured, I'm gonna start cutting pipe to go around here. So I'm gonna have to get kind of creative. It's gonna have to come here, do a little of an angle, and then another angle, and then come out through here. So this is the one downside of using the Ford 8.8 compared to the Ford 7.5 that Monster Miata recommends, is because if you go with a smaller pumpkin like they ask, then you have a lot more room for exhaust. So that's the one downside of going with the big beefy rear end, is you kind of run out of room to run the exhaust. So, but we'll make it work. I would rather have a not as pretty exhaust and have a beefy rear end than have a, you know, pretty exhaust with tons of clearance and then have a rear end that most likely will be okay. But if I'm building a V8, I'm not gonna be driving like a Prius. I probably want to bang gears and do burnouts, you know, have fun with it. That's why I'm building a car. So I'm gonna try and build it as beefy as I can, being on a budget, you know what I mean? So, and plus this is all I could find anyway. I didn't even find a 7.5 with limited slip. So that's what I got. I'm gonna make it work, so. All right, so we're gonna keep going on the exhaust. This is what I have so far. 2 V-bands, H-pipe, all the way back here. So I figured the best way to do this would be to basically mount the muffler temporarily where I want it and then go from the muffler back. So as you can see, I went around the subframe, back out there. So now I just have to connect that to that. So I just welded some temporary hanger on here just so I can have an idea where the muffler is gonna go. But from there, it's gonna do a 45 and come out here on both sides. So if this phone will focus, there you go. So this is how it's coming out. It's a lot harder to fabricate an exhaust on your own than you think it is. I know it looks easy to just cut angles and tack them together, but to get the angles right, especially when you buy a kit and you don't know how many pieces you have left, you might spend all your angles on one side and then not have enough to do the other and have to buy a whole nother kit. So it's very hard to, this is pretty much my first time fabricating a whole exhaust from scratch, and I'll be honest about it. I've modified many exhausts, but I've never actually made one from scratch, especially with the you know, I don't have any machines or any pipe benders or anything, so this is all get the angles and cut it and make it fit. But I think it's actually coming out decent for something homemade. So what I had to do here, I had to cut here and here. I am gonna have the brace, the factory Miata brace go here. But this ear here on the subframe, let's see if I can show you. This used to kind of be rounded, and it's still pretty strong, you know, and they say triangles are your friend. Basically, when you want support, you want to do triangles. So the way it is right now, it's got plenty of support. So basically, I just cut a little bit of this side, a little bit of that side. I did it on all four, just to give me extra clearance for the exhaust. So, and it worked perfect, as you can see here, because this would have been a lot closer, and especially over here, this would have been touching, and now it's not because of it. So I got decent, you know, 1/4 inch, closer to 1/2 inch. About 1/2 inch on this side, about 1/4 inch on this side. So it's plenty for me. This side is a little tighter just because the pumpkin's not 100% centered on this, but we'll make it work, and it's gonna come out pretty good. But this is what I have so far, guys. So let's keep going and see if we can make this complete. Okay, so the exhaust is almost complete. I have it all the way down to here. So again, mufflers are just being hung by temporary hangers because the actual hangers I ordered did not come. That area there did come out a little worse than I wanted to, just because of the gap, but I am gonna redo these two here gaps, and I'm gonna close this out. But this is just to get the basic shape. This side here is a little tighter. It's probably about 1/4 inch. Let me see if I can show you, 1/4 inch clearance, maybe a little less on both sides, but it will be fine. This side here has more room. It's just this side here is tighter. So, but as you can see from down here, the pumpkin is not straight. It's actually a little to the right. So that's why you have less clearance over there if you look at the mounting points. So it's fine. It's still enough clearance. I might notch this a tiny bit on both sides, but back here, I might notch it too. See that? I might weld that solid and then notch it. Other than that, I have random things, just like piece of rubber, just holding the exhaust in place. Because when you have temporary hangers like these, so see temporary hangers, it's hanging on the sway bar. But because I just painted the sway bar, I wrapped some plastic on it, and I have the hook on top of the plastic. Obviously, I don't want to scratch the freshly painted piece. So, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do just to hold it in place, but the mufflers are on. Again, random things holding it just so you can get the right angle. Measured on both sides. It's pretty, let me see if I can, it's pretty close on both sides. It's not gonna be 100% perfect because I'm not a exhaust shop. You know what I mean? I've never built an exhaust, so I don't expect it to be anything close to perfect. But honestly, for something that I made at home and I made myself, I'm, you know, as much as the welds are not that pretty and the angles are not as perfect, I'm proud of, you know, being able to build this myself. I think it's honestly for something I built at home with decent materials, with the wrong welding gas, I think it came out all right. At least for now, so I can get the project going. Later on, once I get good at TIG welding, I can always upgrade and build another one. But, you know, you learn from your mistakes, guys. So don't be afraid to try something. Just because you've never done something does not mean you cannot do it. The only way to learn how to do something is to try and make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. So always remember that. So it came out pretty good. I'm probably right here. Let me see. Probably right here. I'm probably gonna weld a rod going across here just to kind of join these two together because it's already supported on the front. So it'll be a lot of flex for these two to be individual. So I think I'm just gonna weld a stainless rod here just to add rigidity to the piece. And you know, when the exhaust shakes, it's not gonna be, all the stress is not gonna be on these welds here. You don't want, you don't want a long ass piece putting stress on that weld. So I'm gonna join back here just to make it a little more stiffer. Once my hangers came in, and I ordered poly rubbers too. I'm not gonna be using these. Once they come in, then I'm actually gonna really measure it out and add the hangers and weld it to this with the real hanger. Once everything's hung the way I want, then all I gotta do is take it down. Again, take it down right at the V-band because the front is all set. The front already has support, as I already showed you. Take the whole exhaust down, weld every tech weld it all complete, and then put it on the car. Once it's on the car and it's done, then I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna cut this at an angle and add an exhaust tip right here. I'm only gonna do a single exhaust tip. Oh, and by the way, for those of you who hasn't seen it, here's my Mustang badge. So I finally put a 5-liter badge on it so people can laugh at it as they're approaching, thinking that I'm some kind of racer that just want to put a big motor badge on it until they pull up next to me and they hear my idle. Then they're gonna be like, oh. So it's gonna be kind of funny, especially when something's popping out of the hood. So yeah, this is honestly a ton of work. I did not realize it was this much work, but especially the exhaust. Motor, transmission, everything is really work, but the exhaust, especially if I've never done it before like this, was a lot of work, but well worth it. So yeah. Also, my fuel system is pretty much complete for what I need, I believe. So I got my fuel pressure regulator there, went with aeromotive as I showed you guys already with the gauge. I did choose Evo Energy for the fuel lines and fittings. Honestly, I haven't used 6AN fittings very much, and if I'm gonna do something fuel related, obviously I'm gonna try and not get the cheapest thing ever. So you can buy something exactly like this without this sticker inside the box for probably half the price. But do I really wanna cheap out on one of the most important things of the build, which is a fuel system? I don't think so. If that was the case, I would have bought a $30 version of this $200 regulator. So you know, certain things you do go budget, but you really don't want to just budget everything and do everything low quality, because all you're doing is you're setting yourself up for a headache, because you're going to build a car that has all cheap parts in it and everything's just going to fail. So certain things you can buy cheaper parts, but when it comes to fuel, again, building an exhaust, I could have built it for probably half the amount of money to build this exhaust. And if I went with regular, you know, mild steel, but then, you know, a year and a half, 2 years later, it's all rotted. It's not something you can just go online and order. I'm gonna have to remake the whole thing. Why am I gonna go through this headache twice? You know what I mean? If I can make this and it'll last me a decent amount of time, then I'm okay with it. Later on, I can build another one if I have to, but to build something cheap just to get me going that is very poor quality, to me, it seems like a waste of time. So I went with this kit here. It comes with 25 feet of 3/8 hose. This is for the return. So I'm using, let's see, I'm using the Miata factory fuel line. I'm gonna unhook it here. There's a fitting in there that will slide over this line, the metal line. It'll clip on it so it won't come out. And then it gives you a AN fitting on this side. From here, I can go straight to the pump or go to the filter and then the pump. So, and then up there, same thing. This line comes up on firewall. There's another one of these adapters up there. You clip it in, you tighten it, and it gives you a AN fitting. And it's made to convert metal line to AN fitting. So the return line is gonna go from the bottom of the regulator. So this side's gonna be kept off. This side's gonna be the gauge. This side's gonna go to the carburetor. The bottom one is your return. The return, that's what I need this hose for. So the line on the Miata is 5/16. So they say the return, you want it to be a little bigger than your main line going to the carb or going to the regulator in this case. So you want the return to be a little bigger if you can, or the bigger the better, they say, but there's only so much hose that I can run back there. So I chose to go the next size up and get 3/8. So I got 3/8 hose, a ton of fittings, and I'm gonna run that. I'm gonna mount this on the firewall. I did think, let me see here. I did think about mounting this back here because it would be a way shorter run and I would not have to have a long return. But the only problem with that is if I need to adjust it, it kind of is a pain in the ass. I'm gonna have to jack up the car and probably take the wheel off or just put it up on the lift, but then I can't really, you know what I mean? It's just make it a hassle. So I'm gonna mount this under the hood, and that way if I have any problems, the gauge is gonna be right there. I'm gonna be able to always see my live data, as you can call it, pressure. So all I have to do is open the hood with the cover and you can see my pressure. It's gonna be a very short line from the regulator to the carburetor, which is great. The only downside is, like I said, a very long return line, but a lot of cars have that anyway. So that's pretty much my fuel system. I am gonna use the Miata stock pump, which I replaced when I bought the car a few years ago. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove the in-tank regulator and leave no regulator at all. So a lot of people think that your fuel pump is what builds pressure. Your fuel pump doesn't really build pressure. It's your regulator that, how can I explain it? Your regulator creates a barrier, and that's what causes the pump to build pressure. So if your regulator is set to 7 PSI, the pump is only gonna build 7 PSI, and everything that's excess is gonna go right into the return. So in this case, the regulator inside the tank of the Miata is about 60 or 70 PSI. So the pump is gonna push enough fluid, it's gonna build up 70 PSI, and then the regulator will spit out everything that's extra. So the same way applies with adding a adjustable fuel pressure regulator. I'm only gonna be running 7, 8 PSI, so that's all the pump is gonna be building. Everything after 8 PSI is gonna be coming right back to the tank. So it's gonna be a pretty low pressure system, but this is rated for EFI. It's a hard plastic line. So this is for EFI, so in the future, I already have lines ran. So this would be perfect for me. So yeah, this is probably gonna be the next step. Once the exhaust is done, the hangers are welded up, the exhausts are welded. Once the exhaust is pretty much done, Then I'm gonna tackle the fuel system. And honestly, after the fuel system is up and running, all I gotta do is hook up a few wires and I can just fire right up. And basically it'll be running and moving on its own power. I know I still have to do the cooling system and, you know, add the radiator. I have to put the power steering pump. I have to figure out the alternator, but it will be, once this is in, it will be a running and driving car, which I plan on attending 4th of July party at the family's house up front with. They only live right in front of us, so I plan on driving the car there. Obviously, with no cooling system, you can run the car for 30 seconds or a minute and it won't overheat or anything. It's not enough time to. So I'd like to get to the party with the Miata running, open exhaust, obnoxious, just to add some spirit to the party. But yeah, guys, so this is the update for this week. If you guys have any questions, anything you guys want to throw at me, go for it. If I can't help you, I will. If I can't, I will research and help and try and help you either way. So yeah, I appreciate you guys watching. Once again, thank you for the 100 subscribers. I did change the channel URL, so we're good to go, and we'll see you guys on the next one.